Goes. Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Norwich City Council Licensing Subcommittee. It's Wednesday 20th of September 2023. Apologies for the late start of this meeting. We'll crack on now. My name is Ian Stuteley. I'm the chair today. I have with me Councillor Claire Kidman, Councillor Liam Calvert, who are on the panel today. We've got Ryan Newman and Florence Clement Harry from NP Law, and they're advising us on legal matters today. We have Maxine Fuller from Licensing Department and
Kyle Gregg, also from the Licensing Department.
Kyle, welcome. Okay, we have Michelle Bartram representing the Police Licensing Department, and Leonie, who is helping with our tech today, and applicant and two objectors, and also welcome to George from Archant. Okay, so we'll start with apologies, please.
So, Chair, we've had apologies from Councillor Worley, Councillor Calvert is just.
Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest, and there are none. Okay, so item number 3 then is application for grant of a premises licence for Beer Hatch Bottle Shop, premises address 22A Wenston Street, Norwich. And we'll have a report from Maxine. Maxine, can you present the report and tell us about any new papers or information that we need to know about, please? Thank you.
Purpose of the meeting. The members are asked, in accordance with the delegation of licensing functions contained in the Norwich City Council Statement of Licensing Policy, Licensing Act 2003, to consider the application for the grant of a premises licence in respect of the Beer Hatch Bottle Shop, 22A Wenston Street, Norwich, NR3 1HY, following the receipt of relevant representation. It's recommended that members determine the application to grant the premises licence in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and subsequent regulations, guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and Norwich City Council Statement of Licensing Policy. The applicant and the proposed DPS is Saul Press. The application seeks to allow the licence for activities, times and opening hours as set out in the application form, which is attached to Appendix A. This also includes the steps proposed to promote the licensing objectives, which is the operating schedule. We received police representation. A copy of this is attached to Appendix B. We didn't receive any other representation from any of the other responsible authorities, but we did receive 5 representations from the local residents, which is a copy attached to Appendix C. In determining the application with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, the subcommittee must give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, that is to say, the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. The representations, including supporting information presented by all parties, the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 National Guidance, and the Council's own Statement of Licensing Policy. The subcommittee must take such of the following steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives: grant the application as passed, modify the conditions of the licence by altering or omitting or adding to them, reject the whole or part of the application, refuse to accept the proposed DPS. The subcommittee is asked to note that it may not modify the conditions or reject the whole or part of the application merely because it considers it desirable to do so. It must actually be appropriate in order to promote the licensing objectives. The representation received appears to relate to the issues that fall under the licensing objectives. Additional papers were received and they have been served on all parties. There was additional papers from Saul Press. He sent through his information about his beer training that he's had, the company that was stocking their products, and also an information pack from Pegasus Roller Filler. There was also some additional papers from one of the objectives, I think Mr. Rackley, he sent through some stuff and that's all been served on all the parties, including the police and the other objectives, so there was no further additional papers from the ones that I saw in the last couple of days.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we'll welcome Saul Press, applicant. If you'd like to address the panel and the objectors as well, tell us about your business model.
Yeah.
And paying particular attention to the licensing objectives and those that have been raised as issues. So
yeah. Shall I put this on? Do I?
Yes. So
yeah.
You, any speakers, if you could
All
just
right.
use the button on your middle of your microphone.
I've kept it. I've got some bits down. I've kept relatively short.
Okay. So yeah, just use the button. Yeah.
I've popped some bits down. I've kept relatively short, and then we can discuss
Yeah.
any additions in there. So I'm here to present my premises license application for a bottle shop, clearly differentiating it from a bar or a mini pub. The primary focus of my establishment will be to serve craft beers rather than high volume alcohol sales. We will not be offering things such as spirits and mixers or wine by the glass, well-known lagers. This will be exclusively featuring small batch artisan producers with, again, a focus on the off-license side of it as well, the take-home. The majority of our sales will consist of craft beers priced at a premium, and importantly, the clientele is characterised by their respectful and non-intimidating nature, ensuring a harmonious environment for residents. I appreciate the concerns by the objectors, specifically regarding potential nuisances and prevention of crime. As you know, I've tried to engage with the residents of Roche's Court to come up with a resolution. I understand the objectors don't feel that the product I'm selling or my green credentials are relevant to the licence application, but they give the committee an understanding of the type of customer I will attract. I've also engaged with other members of the local community, including the coffee shop Fika opposite and the Ribs of Beef, just to have some discussions with them about any of their concerns. One of the key reasons I'm seeking the latest licence on this is to enable me to host tasting events and provide beer training as part of my commitment to expanding people's knowledge and appreciation of craft beer. I've already completed my Cicerone, seen, and I'm actively working towards level 2. The additional space I'll have will allow me to educate others on craft beer. My regular open hours planned would be Tuesday and Wednesday from 11 AM till 9:30 PM, Thursdays and Fridays from 11 AM till 10:30 PM, and Saturday 10:30 till 10:30 PM. The reason I've asked for some later is obviously for these events. You know, I might want to have some extra time. You know, people may want to have dinner before coming out to these things. I won't have any, food on site. Given the limited space and the absence of a cellar or storage facilities, my entire inventory will be displayed and sold on the 25 square metre of shop floor. As a result, the number of customers allowed inside will be naturally limited, contributing to a controlled and intimate shopping experience. The music will be played at a background level. If this does impact the neighbours in any way, then I'm more than happy to adjust the levels so as not to disturb the neighbourhood. To maintain compliance with regulations, I'm looking at maximum capacity in the shop as a general capacity of around 16 people. For my events, I'd like some more. I can move my counter back, so I could have a bigger table to run a tasting event of up to 20 people. It'll be accomplished by seating provided in the windows and one table with stools in the shop. It's important to note that in accordance with the city's public space protection order, open containers of alcoholic beverages will not be permitted outside the premises. I'm pleased to report we have not received any objections from the police or any other responsible authorities. The police have offered some licensing conditions that I'm more than willing to implement. These conditions include actively discouraging people from congregating outside the premises, displaying signage notifying patrons of the PSPO restrictions on street drinking, discontinuing on-premise alcohol sales 15 minutes prior to closing time, maintaining cleanliness of the area surrounding the shop, and marking off-sale alcohol bottles to indicate they were purchased from the premises. I will ensure these conditions are enforced by actively dissuading the congregation outside the shop and refusing service to those disregarding any requests, and prominently displaying notices in the immediate vicinity. To conclude, I firmly believe my premises licence for a bottle shop provides a unique and valuable addition to the community. By focusing on local craft beers and offering educational opportunities, my goal is to create an environment that fosters deeper appreciation for artisanal products. I'm fully committed to operating within the defined perimeters, including adhering to the licensing conditions proposed by the police. I am confident that through responsible management, this venture will not only contribute positively to the area, but also address concerns about loitering and antisocial behaviour by providing a well-operated and inviting space. I appreciate your consideration for my application and look forward to the opportunity to contribute to the vibrant and diverse community on Wensum Street and in Norwich.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've got some questions.
Yeah.
Some of the questions, just for the benefit of members of the public and those here, some of the questions that we'll be asking about the operating schedule are technical points that we will seek to clarify. So just so that people know, we're seeking to clarify them, not because we have a determination already in our minds, but simply to have a full and complete application to consider. So we won't have those yet. Just a warning that they'll come, and that takes a little while to run through. So got some questions, I think, from councillors first. Who'd like to go first? Councillor Calvert?
Yeah. You talked about in your application where you source your beers from, locally sourced beers. How will that impact on the conduct of your customers and the impact on the surrounding area?
So I feel with artisanal products and being at a premium price, those customers are generally been to not be out drinking high volume. They're looking for a nice product to try one can or one drink off. They're not looking to have multiple drinks somewhere, and also that's something has become very popular for people to take home and have some nice cans and some different drinks to have at home, rather than those kind of people that would go to your normal corner shop or a supermarket. These people actively seek out something different. I know a lot of people could just go to the supermarket, get some cheap, even with craft beers, you can get cheap craft beers at the supermarket. These are not the craft beers I'd be stocking. There's no point in me competing against a supermarket for these sales, and I would be looking to, I already have a customer base of these customers as well who come to me at the phone box in Tombland, and I'm looking to get a wider range, to support more breweries, and to get a different, and to be able to do the educational side of things as well. So yeah, it's for people actively seeking something different, not the same stuff. And I feel those type of customers are going to, be a bit more respectful of the area. And again, through my experience, I think that's something that I already have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just to expand on that, can you indicate, I know you won't want to give too much away at this stage,
Yeah.
but can you indicate kind of price point for the products that you'll be selling?
So we're looking at a price point. So if you said one pint would be about £7. So yeah, an average pint between £6.50, £7.50. Some of these alcohols as well will be a bit on the stronger side, so they'll be served in a 2/3 glass rather than a pint. That's something, again, if you're having a beer that is 6%, you'll often have that in a 2/3 glass, and that's something that I will be pushing more than having a price per pint will be for a 2/3. So you're talking about £5 for a 2/3 of maybe something a bit different.
Okay, so for those that are in the premises sampling your beers, rather than having a can and drinking from the can, you'll be serving them in glasses. Is that correct?
Yeah. So part of the craft beer experience is you need it in a glass. You know, that's where you'll get the aromas, that's where you'll see what the beer looks like. So again, going on my education, I would almost insist that it goes into a glass. I don't want people drinking out of cans. You know, and again, that's where I'll come to educate people on having these premises, to talk to people about how they should be drinking a craft beer. You know, not that I want to be a snob about it, but having things like the glass to get those aromas, see what it's like, you know, is part of the experience if you're going to drink it.
Okay, thank you. So you've said in your address that you have changed the hours that you're...
So just looking at, I guess what I was looking at that address is what my general hours would be. I put in the application on you know, on the side of like, well, if I wanted to do an event that we wanted to run a bit later, then that gives me people, so say I was to do a tasting event on a Friday night, so people have got to get home after work, have some dinner, come to me for 8:30. So if I was going to do a tasting for 2 hours, that'd run till say 10:30, and then it gives some people time to have a drink afterwards, and then for me to, you know, clear people out by 12 o'clock.
Okay. So can you just run through the proposed general hours that you mentioned earlier again, please?
So looking at the general hours I mentioned earlier, so Mondays I'll be closed, it's my day with my son who goes to nursery still, and Tuesdays and Wednesdays would be, I'm looking at 11 a.m. until 9:30 p.m. Further down the line, what I'm also looking at to do is more of a some homebrew equipment. I mean, this all goes on how much space I'm in there. But yeah, carry on. So 11 till 9:30 p.m. on a Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursdays and Fridays from 11 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. and the Saturday 10:30 a.m. till 10:30 p.m.
Sorry, could you repeat Saturday and Sunday, please?
So, I'm closed on Sunday as well.
Closed on Sunday, yeah. And Saturday was?
Saturday 10:30 a.m. till 10:30 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay, so just so I've got that right.
Cool.
Monday and Sunday closed.
Yeah.
Tuesday and Wednesday 11 to 9:30. Thursday, Friday 11 till 10:30. Saturday and Sunday 10:30 to 10:30.
Sunday closed.
Sunday closed, yeah. And within that, you would have a 15-minute drinking up period. Did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you would, you would propose to stop serving alcohol 15 minutes before these later times.
Well,
each of those days.
I suppose with these times here, what I'd be looking at closing last at 10:30, and then everyone out by 15:15. So this kind of including the conditions that the police put in to be a bit later. So say I'd be last service inside at 10:30, everyone out by 11:15.
Okay, thank you. And how often do you think you would deviate from those times? So, for example, how often do you think you might open on a Monday or a Sunday, or open later on any of those days?
I would say maybe once every couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I'd be looking to kind of try and run, something a little bit later every 2 weeks. I think would be sensible.
Yeah, so one day within any 2 week period.
Yeah.
On average.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions from councillors at this stage? Councillor Kidney, please.
On the back of the times you just mentioned, in your application you've got requested in standard days and timings an opening time of 9 a.m. Monday to Sunday, and just based on what you were just saying there about special events such as wine tastings and things like that, I was just curious as to why you've thought that 9 a.m. would be a sensible time to put in your application.
So the 9 a.m. application, further down in my business, what I was looking at doing, which I still hope to, getting in there and see what space I have, is to have homebrew equipment available. So this would make me more of a shop in the earlier hours, so people would come to me to buy, different homebrew equipment, So that's why I was looking at that 9 a.m. But in terms of licensing, if I had the homebrew equipment, really, if I was just selling that and not the alcohol side of things, then I guess it wouldn't make so much matter. What my idea was people would come in, they'd get their homebrew equipment, then they'd also take away some nice craft beers as well to try at home. So maybe it'd be looking at having only off sales in those earlier hours, so I could still run that kind of homebrew equipment side of the business and off sales, but no drinking on the premises earlier. I think it makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Councillor Calvert, please.
In your written submission, you said you would be willing to take on the reporting of antisocial behaviour around your premises. To your mind, what is antisocial behaviour, and also to what kind of radius would you be committing to report that?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to see too far radius apart from the immediate vicinity of my shop. So looking at, people, the public urination I know is a big problem. So people, I caught them on my CCTV camera directly outside my shop, publicly urinating, or if there have been any reports I could cooperate with local residents, I think that would be important to report that to police and to tell them, like, oh, there was an incident last night, here's my CCTV, or I saw something happening outside my shop. So yeah, it's reporting anything that I can see, as an upstanding member of society in the public. You would say, like, I saw something happening, and report that to the police.
I guess my concern is that Wentham Street and that whole stretch there is quite a busy area generally. If you're committing to reports all the ASB you see, you might end up being an extremely busy person. Perhaps you'd like to talk more about how you might manage the ASB immediately around your shop as well as reporting.
So immediately around my shop, obviously being vigilant, I guess, on that, and having that CCTV immediately around my shop. And yes, and managing that would be obviously, discussing with a lot of these people. I think everyone is human at the end of the day, and to talk to people. If I think, they may not know how antisocial they're being. If people are being loud outside in Roach's Court, for instance, you may know you need to go up and go, look, there's housing behind here. Do you mind moving on? This isn't an area for you to wait for your taxis, that kind of side of things. So, a discussion with people, I think, is the first way to deal with antisocial behaviour, rather than going straight to calling the police and saying, oh, there's someone shouting outside my shop. To go out and discuss it with, whoever may be causing that antisocial behaviour, if they're in that, immediate vicinity of my shop, I think it's, sensible to go and talk to people.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned CCTV. What plans do you have for CCTV? How many cameras will you have, and where will they monitor specifically, please?
The CCTV camera, there'll be one within the shop covering all my stock, and there'll be one in the immediate vicinity outside covering my doorway, as you have there. So that area, you've got Roach's Court entrance there. The doorway side is kind of in an inlet there. Just again, if people would come to my door late at night, break in, then I'd have that to hand to the police. Okay, so it won't be trained on the undercover area that is the subject of some of the objections. No, it won't be on Roach's Court gates at all. Thank you. So two cameras, and in your submission, you state that it will be kept for 28 days in one section and 30 days in another. Can you just confirm? Sorry, I think it is 28 days. It'll be the one from my original, 28 days. Yeah, okay, so and I believe that's what the police have asked for as well, so you've accepted that, so let's clear that one up. Sorry, that's okay. Okay, so there's a few other questions that I've got, and then we'll talk to objectors. Well, as we go through, some of the objections you've made may be covered, and you may wish to respond to those in your addresses as well. Okay, so
you've got a refusals policy and a policy on when people become intoxicated. You said you wouldn't serve intoxicated people. Do you have a policy on when someone presents intoxicated or becomes intoxicated within the premises and or vulnerable?
So my policy within that, I have actually had some hospitality training within, looking out for the signs of intoxication. So I do have training in that to look out for that. Vulnerable people, I would make sure they were safe to get home, make sure they had a taxi cab or someone to come and pick them up and look after them. But I would stop service, obviously. Also, if, within being a very small shop, I'd be able to tell how many drinks someone had had. So, when you're getting to a few, I think you'll know, like, you probably had enough before you get them to that level of intoxication. Again, this isn't a kind of venue where we're looking for people who are going to spend all night drinking in there, getting drunk. It's a slower, calmer pace that I'd be looking for, and for people to be like, do you want one more? Here's a can. I think it's time for you. Not that I want them to go and get drunk at home, but after 2 drinks with us, maybe they would want to go home and, have some takeout for that. But, don't want to, I wouldn't serve anyone off sales or on sales if they were looking like they were going to get intoxicated and cause any disruption in the area.
Okay, thank you. So you've explained very well that you expect to have clientele that are beer connoisseurs themselves, looking for education. But given the area that this is in, there may be people who are visiting a number of pubs in one go, and pubs and places that serve alcohol. They may pop into your shop after having quite a few, try one of your strong beers, present themselves quite well, but then have that one too many that's a strong beer. How will you deal with that, and how if that happens?
So again, within
your response?
Someone being intoxicated in there, to make sure they're safe. I think it's the most important thing. Water. So make sure they have water, that they're sat down, that they have their friends around them, and that they, have got how they're going to get home, a way to get home. So to make sure they have booked a taxi, and that they're safe. And then when they get home as well, to make sure there's someone there, because again, the worst thing you want is someone to get home intoxicated. There's lots of problems that could happen at home. There's no one there for them, or to make sure their friend goes back with them to check they're okay. And again, talking to those friendship groups as well, to make sure someone's going to check in with them in the morning as well, to check everything's all right there.
Okay, that's very comprehensive. I think if you're in that position, there is potential for there's potential for a number of people to be in the area at the same time. If there are people congregating in the undercover area, that's the entrance to the place where our objectors live, how will you deal with that? I know you've touched on it. Can I specifically hear how you will?
So is this within the area in front of my shop?
Well, the area in front of your shop, but also next door to it, where there's the covered area that leads to the gated.
So that would be, where I would, leave my premises to go talk to those people. And also, I think an important factor is when people come in, when I see them heading to the door, to be like, you mustn't congregate. Please stand away from the gated community. Again, explaining to people, everyone, you talk to them, be like, look, people live behind here, you mustn't congregate underneath that shelter. If you want to go have a cigarette, you can go around the corner, so you're not disturbing, not using this amplified tunnel to disturb the people behind. So before they've even got out there to congregate, to discuss it with them first. Especially if you've got a group in, so say there's 6 people, they're like, oh, we'd all like a third. Say like, yeah, fine. Or if you do go outside, make sure you go right outside. Don't congregate in the area outside my shop or in front of next door's gates. That is, private property, and it's for people to get in and out of their houses.
Okay, thank you. And what about if people are there that are not your customers?
Again, they're going to find it very tricky if they're not my customer. I will obviously pop out there and talk to them. And again, I think people are very reasonable, and if you discuss this with them, to be like, look, you know, the people live behind here, as the objectives have discussed with me, you know, people live behind there, you know, I think everyone will take it on to be like, all right, yeah, we'll move on, you know, yeah, you can't force anyone. I'm not going to grab anyone and push them out of the area. You know, the next thing to do, if they were creating a big nuisance, is to, you know, alert 101, alert the authorities in some way to say, like, also, you've also got security over the glass house, ribs of beef. I don't know if there's anything there. I mean, they'll probably be dealing with their own stuff at those venues, but, you know, hopefully there's a community there that can help us discuss it with any, you know, with any people that are causing, you know, nuisance in front of Roach's Court. You know, where they've come from is one thing as well. If they have come from over the glass house or somewhere like that, you know, maybe it's to be like, oh, look, do you want, you know, something along those lines to kind of try and get them moved on, but in a polite and mannerful way that's, you know, not going to get anyone's back up, but just discuss the problems that we've got.
Okay, thank you. Any questions at the moment? I think there are. I have some more questions, and I know we need to run through some of the details. But I think we need to hear from our objectors as well. So first of all, who would like to go first? Paul?
Sure.
Yeah. So Paul.
Paul. Morning, everyone. So I've lived at Roach's Court for 9 years, and oddly enough, what we've just discussed is so poignant. There's a theory here, which is always interesting, and there's always a difference between theory and reality. I have a tremendous background in the reality of dealing with awkward people. I'm an expert on it, I suppose. Plus the 9 years I've lived here. We do have people congregating, of course we do. I'm going to concentrate on a different area just because I know that Cliff will get to the front area, but it's the same issue. We have people taking alcohol to the back of Roach's Court. In fact, it provides an ideal spot if there's an off-licence around the front. It really would be handy. You can buy your cans and bottles, shoot around the back of Roach's Court. It's beautiful back there. Does everyone know the area? It's such a nice area. That's part of the beauty of living there. On any given night, and it isn't just weekends, we have some serious problems back there. I've had to put a camera up on my back door. I've tried cajoling, I've tried being nice. I was told by one particular worker here in Norwich, well, I'll ask your wife to talk to these folks back there because sometimes they're nicer to women than the aggressive male thing that goes on. We've tried it all, and frankly, no one is reasonable and no one says, yeah, sure, Paul, you live there and you probably get up at 6 in the morning and you've got to go to work. We'll knock it off and go home. That's not the reality. The reality is I keep earplugs in my bedroom. That's the reality, because we cannot get to sleep. 101, with all due respect, and there's a police presence here today, is that correct? With all due respect, the neighbourhood team have come by, great folks, just real people. They can't come. They can't come because they're too busy. Of course they are. They're not coming because someone's keeping me up or someone's urinating. We'll get to that. Someone's urinating at the back of my flat. For many years, we tried to put our dining table by our window that backs off to that garden. I had to move it. You can't have dinner back there because the urination goes on and on and on. It's a public toilet. We had to move the table. It's ruining my dinner. It's not there by the window now. So what do we do about that? And what could an off-licence do about it? The answer to me is it's clear. There's nothing to happen about that. 101, again with due respect, the call gets picked up in a couple of minutes and then they say, we'll put you through to dispatch. You've read the paper, it's in the paper, it's been well documented. Average wait, 45 minutes. When it's midnight and I've got to get up at 6, what are you going to do? I've made hundreds of calls over 9 years. I've stopped making them. The earplugs are the easiest way. The upset of sitting up, listening to the music that keeps playing, that's worse. I'd rather put the earplugs in. They're not comfortable, I don't like it. I don't feel safe not hearing at all in my sleep. But I got to get some rest. That's the reality. Around the front, You know, I spent some time this year putting a little garden out the front. It's a wall garden. It was hard work, but it's pretty in there. We try to switch backwards and forwards to wherever the drinkers are. So if they're causing a big fuss in the front, we try and go to the back, and if it's both, we've got to shut the doors and call it a day. The front entrance we're talking about at this bottle shop is 80 feet from the family that live next door to me. Family of 4, 2 children under 5. You know the language we hear from that front entranceway when people have had a couple of beers. The F-bomb is nothing to those guys. They're children. They play out there. I don't like it. I live there. That's the reality for me about that. I don't have too much more to say about the back of Roach's Court. 9 years, we love living where we live. We've had a good summer this year, by the way. It hasn't been bad. We've had some real rough ones, and I think a lot of the work by the neighbourhood team has helped. But I'm not saying we haven't been kept up. There's no way. And the urination is just pub and paddle add to that as well. Pub and paddle folks will get off the canoes and head to the bottle shop, I guess, top up there too. Those people that can afford £17 for half an hour on a canoe, they got money for beer. There's no problem there. The last thing really, I suppose, and I'm no angel, and I've had a few craft beers, and Roy's sells some nice local brewery beers. I like Roy's. The truth is this too, when we talk about community, and I've worked for a local charity here with young people for over 7 years, I know about community, and I love this community here. Community-wise, you know, at the beginning of 2023, the World Health Organization issued a statement I forget the medical paper, no matter. They made it abundantly clear, you know, no alcohol consumption does not affect your health. So let's talk about reality here. We're selling more alcohol. That's the end of it. More alcohol. I'm not asking that we close down the ribs of beef or the mischief or the glass house.
I think, just sorry to interrupt you, I think we're deviating away from the remit of the committee.
I'm not asking you to close anything down.
Yeah,
but I would ask we don't add to it. That's my thought. Thank you.
From a point of view of numbers, it's not something for the committee to consider because we don't have a cumulative impact policy in the city. So as a committee, we can't consider that. However, we do have to consider the current effect on residents and whether this particular venue may inevitably add to that. So that's something that we do have to consider. So first of all, I'll ask Michelle, as we've been talking about antisocial behaviour, just to address the committee with your submission, but also to expand, if you may, on Mr. Bourne's points about the back of the premises, and then I'll ask Mr. Press to respond.
Thank you, Chair. If you're happy, I'll just do my sort of overview.
Yes, please.
And then I'll sort of talk a little bit more in detail. As per my letters, Norfolk Police have been consulted with this application. Just to give you some background, we were first aware of the operator when Mr. Press applied for a premises licence for an online business during COVID back in 2020. Then in July 2022, police were served with a copy of the application to permit off-sales of alcohol for the redundant phone box in Toonland. As you can imagine, there were initial police concerns with this operation, with it being first of a kind and offering off-sales within the city centre. It was feared that this off-sale operation would increase alcohol drinking on the street and encourage the breaching of the PSPO, which is the Public Space Protection Order. For those that don't know, the alcohol PSPO covers Norwich City Centre and is in place to reduce antisocial behaviour relating to alcohol drinking. It gives the police and authorised officers powers to confiscate alcohol from people who drink alcohol in public places and cause problems for others. During the consultation period for the licence for the kiosk, the applicant explained his operation in more details and conditions were mutually agreed to be imposed on the premises licence to help reduce the likelihood of issues occurring. These conditions included the marking of the bottles so we could trace back to that premise, the discouraging of street drinking by informing customers, and staff training and records. It is worth noting that the current licence granted for the telephone kiosk was only until 7 p.m, and I acknowledge that this application for Wensum Street is later than the current hours that Mr. Press operates. I have also an understanding that the issues of the alcohol drinking in the area varies from day and evening times, and the residents have obviously touched on that and might be able to elaborate more. In addition to his usual operation, I'm also aware that Mr Press has used 9 temporary event notices this summer, with another one planned, to allow for a dedicated seating area with on-sales next to the phone boxes. This was agreed, providing that the area was clearly defined and managed, and patrons were prevented from wandering off of the outside area. Norfolk Police cannot evidence any increase in crime and disorder linked to the current premise. This includes during the operation of the temporary event notices. In terms of this new application for 22 Winston Street, although I have no specific concerns relating to this operator, I do acknowledge and understand the residents' concerns in terms of this location. This location is in close proximity to the residential properties immediately next to the residents' access for vehicles and pedestrians. And I am and acknowledge that the residents already experience street drinking and antisocial behaviour in the area, both immediately outside the gate and at the green space behind them, and fear that this will exacerbate the problem. To assist the committee, I did provide an additional document which outlines that there have been problems in recent years, in particular during COVID, when outdoor socialising and congregating was encouraged, and as a result of being a significant issue for the city centre, it was subject to a problem-solving plan last year. The green space behind the properties, Elm Hill Gardens, does tend to be a location for street drinking, which becomes worse in the warmer months. Although the area was not subject to a problem-solving plan this year, I am aware of that officers have received reports from local residents and that there have been a lot of ongoing work taking place in the area. The local policing team have received at least 18 reports via email from one resident highlighting specific incidents. Just to sort of add to that, I haven't got information in terms of calls from the control room to sort of provide you, and I do think that sort of touches on what the gentleman has said, the fact that some of them don't ring up anymore. They contact directly, they have that communication with the beat team, so they'll email and speak to them directly. These reports include emails advising that residents are unable to use the balcony at the rear of the property due to noise and ASB in the public garden. Enforcement action has been taken on some of the prevalent and problematic drinkers who continue to cause antisocial behaviour. This action has been taken in the form of community protection warnings and notices. However, it is accepted that this issue has not been completely resolved. And officers will continue to patrol this area and other hotspots within the city centre. But again, to be honest, they are stretched as well. They're not there all the time. In terms of timings of these issues, I have been informed by the local team that antisocial behaviour takes place at different times of the day, more often but not exclusively when the weather is milder and early afternoon into evening. Colleagues within the licensing team and I have previously spoken to nearby off-licensers in relation to sales of alcohol to street drinkers. These drinkers tend to be attracted to purchasing individual or packs of cheap high-strength beer. As my letter states, it is difficult for police to quantify how much of an impact this new licence will have. We know that the area is problematic, but the experience police have with the operator in operating a licensed premise is positive. When assessing the actual impact at the moment, I try to find a comparison, and the nearest comparison I have is a nearby micropub selling craft beers. And again, this one does not attract street drinkers and does not have issues relating to crime and disorder. I do feel that there are two aspects for the committee to consider: the management of the immediate vicinity and the actual management, the issues of the local green space and the alcohol drinking. From what we know about Mr Press's operation running the kiosk, we've got no evidence that that's going to increase the issues of the back, and that would be disproportionate for me to say that it would. The operating schedule within this application offers conditions such as staff training and records, CCTV both inside and immediately outside. We have looked to add extra conditions to try and help, talking about the discouraging of patrons and signage about the PSPO and the marking of bottles. Again, with these conditions added, the police will have no further representations. I do accept that despite these additional conditions to the licence, It will not allay all the concerns that the residents have with it being so close to their homes, and I hope the committee can determine a decision to please both parties.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so in relation to the green space at the back of the Roach's Court, are the street drinkers there? So, sorry, first of all, the PSPO applies there.
Yeah.
Are the people that drink there, are they known to the local police team as street drinkers? So in most areas you have people that are known.
I've been told
or
there's
are
a
they
mixture.
general reference?
Yes, I've been told, and obviously the residents can certainly sort of be experts in this, but my understanding is from the local team that there's a mixture. There's the usual suspects that decide that they're going to congregate there and will cause a problem in the city centre. The local officers will know these people, will be doing some enforcement work with them anyway, and then there'll be other people that will potentially drink there before a night out and want to enjoy sort of the gardens and being together type thing. So there's two types of it, and obviously the officers will look at taking a sort of stronger stance with the ones they know about, because they're more likely to be disorderly, and then obviously it's about education to the other people about the drinking in the park.
Okay, so there's a resources issue. So the local police teams are not able to frequently attend the rear area in order to enforce the PSPO or move people on.
I know they do, and they do try. And again, when they've received emails from residents, they try the best they can to then put those patrols on there. But there are other sort of issues in the city centre as well that they get raised sort of elsewhere, against similar issues, issues of drug taking as well, reports. So they are stretched and they are trying to be visible in various areas. So it's just getting that balance of both.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Press, can you respond to that, and specifically about how you can convince the committee that your establishment won't increase the levels of street drinking, particularly around the back?
As mentioned by the police, it's a matter of education. So although the regular known people, I won't be able to convince, but these aren't people that would frequent my shop for £7 pale ales either. But the people that are irregular, having a little drink in the park beforehand, these are the people I'll educate and say, like, where if I feel like they're a group that's come in for some drinks before they go out, then I'll ask them, where are you taking these takeouts? And if they're like, oh, we're going to go to the park behind, then I'll refuse service, or say like, no, you can have one here, but I'm not serving you to go drink in the park behind. So again, it's a matter of finding the people. If I feel people are wandering past to just grab one to drink in the park behind, hopefully, as an operator, you can kind of tell, I have customers come to me who will want to take home, and I know that customer over the ones who are coming by to say, like, oh, can I get a road beer? I'm going down the pub, down the road. And I'm like, no, there's no drinking on the street here in Norwich, so I can't serve you one to take away. You can have one in my area that I've got now with these tens, which often they will actually stop and be like, all right, yeah, we'll have one here because it's novelty to have a beer from the phone box. So again, this is something that I already operate in terms of the street drinking, that I have people come to me to take home, that I can clearly define between the people that are trying to grab a beer while they're running down the road to some other pub to drink on the street. To educate those people, to talk to them. They'll also be, obviously, as I do in the phone box, marked. So again, police should be able to report, there should be some way, again, that it's marked. Well, this is the way, obviously, why this is in place with the marking, because if the police do turn up there and all the cans are marked with beer hatch, then they come and see me, and that comes to a review of my licence possibly as well, because, again, I'm, looking at breaking conditions, which is trying to stop people from doing that.
Okay, thank you. So we haven't heard from Mr. Rackley, sorry. If you'd like to address the committee, please.
Thank you for the chance to address you. Can I just check beforehand that the committee have all seen this particular photograph?
Yes, I confirm that I did. Yes,
Direct proximity.
yeah, we received those by email. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Picture paints 1,000 words, I think, often. We've highlighted most of the issues here, and thank you to everybody who's raised them. But for me, and I guess most of the residents of Roaches Court, the issue still remains, and that is how to deal with the Roaches Court congregation, if you will. We know it will happen. Mr. Press has said he'll deal with it. But frankly, most of the antisocial behaviour will occur in that covered entrance, and I think it's naive of him to suggest that he will nip out of his shop doorway every 2 minutes to have a look round the corner to see what's going on, because he won't be able to. So for me, they're good words, but I don't see a solid plan there to address the issue of the problems that we get. We already get the antisocial behaviour problems there, so we know that they're there. This bar, and it is a bar, it's not a golf licence, will merely provide a feeder unit, if you will, for people to stand there. So I don't hear anything that has allayed any of my concerns. And for me, I can, if I may, I'll just read out the conclusion. I know you've all read it, but it helps me to read it out, makes me feel better. This bar will increase crime levels in this area where levels are already high due to alcohol abuse, cause harassment, intimidation, and a substantial and unreasonable interference with the residents' use and enjoyment of Roaches Court and its access. The long opening hours, 14 to 15 hours daily, and a note, interestingly, that Mr. Press has severely truncated the opening hours. I don't know if that's going to be an implied condition or an express condition, or whether that's going to be allowed to operate within the hours applied for. So I don't know that, that's just what you said this morning. But the long opening hours, if indeed he's allowed to use them, would exacerbate all of the issues, and most of these problems could persist every day. Football match days would exacerbate the problem with more drinkers passing the bar. The bar would be inappropriately situated within the curtilage of a quiet residential block, and that's the key. It's a residential block, and the bar has no business being there. It's within the curtilage. To me, and I'm sorry, Mr. Press, you've offered no sound mitigation of the issues. You said good words, but I don't see how you're going to apply them. And that is my real concern. We've only bought that flat 9 months ago. My wife and I bought the flat 9 months ago to enjoy some city fun in our sort of dotage, and this could ruin it for us. And that's how I think.
Okay, thank you. So I'll ask Mr. Press to directly respond to that, please.
So response to, I thought I kind of have already responded to a lot of those points. So people from my so the area outside the front.
Yeah. So just to summarise, you said in your address to us that you would monitor the undercover area, both directly outside your shop door and also the covered area. So I'll just turn my computer around, and just so that we will understand this. It probably won't be picked up on the camera, but this is the covered area here, and this leads to Roaches Court, self-evidently. And this is the front door to the proposed premises, and that is the shop area.
One of the, again, what I addressed you with earlier, to stop the congregation there. Obviously I can see anyone outside the front door. I can tell I've got a very small amount of customers. When we're talking about 16 people, and then more maybe for events, if we'll do tastings. To make them aware, if they're going outside, it's a very small shop. I can easily shout to them, you mustn't stand outside the shop door there. If you're going to have a cigarette or to congregate, please move on. That is very simple. And then, like I say, if they refuse, then you refuse service. They mustn't take their drinks outside again. It's PSPO area. So again, I need to make that aware of anyone leaving with a glass in their hand. You mustn't take your drinks outside. This will probably actually stop a lot of congregation in that side, because people, they'll tend to be congregating with a drink in their hand, like they would in a pub or something like that. I think with that factor, let's say, my drinks inside, they might pop out for a quick puff on their vape or something, and then they'll come back in. You're not going to have big groups of everyone being, we've all got to leave our drinks inside to go congregate outside and chat. You may, like I say, have smokers. If I see them, was when they leave, I'll tell them. If you know, and again, I can see which way they're going. If I don't see them walk in front of my shop, I know they've gone the other way, and so I can make sure I nip out. If I see that, I haven't seen them walk out my door the other way, maybe they've gone to go stand underneath Roach's Court, and that's when I can nip out and say, excuse me, no, you mustn't stand here. This is why, and explain to them. You know, and I think, again, going back to the fact of my customers being craft beer drinkers, not drunks, not people looking for high volume alcohol sales of spirits and shots. You know, they will be reasonable people. I deal with them already at my current premises. I've dealt with them, you know, with my delivery side of things, with, you know, markets around the Norfolk area. You know, I know my customer base, and I know they'll listen. They're not going to go like, oh, nonsense to you. I don't want to drink anywhere. I'm going to stand here and smoke without being able to get served again inside my premises.
Okay, so you have explained to the committee that you know your audience, your clientele, and I think it's acceptable to assume that you're correct about that, because we haven't had any representation from the police about the tens that have been operating at your current premises on Toomand, isn't it? So with that, can I ask the objectors to consider whether you believe that Mr. Press is wrong about his clientele? Either, thank you.
Just one thing to mention really is interest in smoking. I'm a non-smoker, you know, I'm too self-righteous, but I'm a non-smoker. And I lived in a very clean air place for a long time, so I'm really very aware of passive smoke. So we have Renfrewshire, which is the kind of opposite side of where this bottle shop would be. That serves the building above there. That's an office block. It's called Renfrewshire. I'm not sure what they do. I'm not sure what Renfrewshire do. There's less than 16 staff up there, but during the day, at any given time, there'll be 2 or 3 people out there smoking in the breezeway. They used to have a cigarette box thing up there where people would stub them out, but they get torn off the wall regularly, so now there isn't one of those. I've asked those folks politely. I'm not going to get into it with someone outside my front door. I've asked them for several years, of course, 9 years now. Could you smoke maybe somewhere else? There's a little park over the road, it's just an open area or something. And of course, you know, this is England, so the weather doesn't really allow for that, and they actually don't care. I don't engage with them anymore because they've made it clear where they're going to smoke. They're going to smoke by their door, and they're going to stub their cigarettes out on the floor. And I just spent £130 on a blower. I got tired of sweeping, my back shot, so I bought a blower, and so I can whip out there every now and again and blow all the fag ends out in the street. That's reality.
Okay, thank you. Again, the committee is not concerned with smokers from other premises, but I get the point that you're making, that if people are smoking outside, it will affect you to some degree. Okay, thank you. I think maybe we'll have some more questions from councillors if there are any. Councillor Kidman.
Thank you. I've got one or two. See which one. One of them to you, Mr. Press, if I may, is about staffing and staff recruitment. I've seen in your letter to Mr. Gorm that you've said responsible service. I'm committed to promoting and upholding responsible alcohol service. All staff will be trained in responsible service practices, etc. So I'd like you, if you can, please expand on your approach to staff recruitment, how many staff you're likely to have, what sort of people will you be looking to recruit, and what sort of training? Could you quantify that, please? Thank you.
So the staff I'll be looking to recruit, I mean, it will start off just with myself, and then I'll be looking to get one other member of staff. The training will consist of a training pack of responsible drinking, so showing, taking people through what to look out for intoxication, you know, the Challenge 25 scheme as well. If anyone looks under 25, they're there to be ID'd. Anyone ID, whether they've got their ID or not, it then needs to go within like a record to show that, you know, we have ID'd the people. You know, they may pass their ID or they may not, with, you know, a brief description. You know, again, with the intoxication side of things, what to look out for in intoxication, you know, and what is a responsible level of drinking. So, like I mentioned before, with if I see someone's on their third of really strong beer, is to kind of challenge them on the fact of have they had enough. Now, you know, I can tell you've had quite a few strong beers now, so maybe it's time you moved, you know, you got home to check that they're okay. Again, to look out for things like drug misuse. Again, to look out for people if people are coming in, you know, things like using the toilets very often in big groups, things like that as well, to make sure my staff are fully trained on, you know, protocols such as that and what to do about it. So yeah, there'll be a training pack that will be signed off by every staff member, by my one staff member, you know, to make sure they understand, you know, all the responsible drinkings and, you know, the licensing side of things, again, to make sure they're trained on the fact that you need to make sure people aren't taking their drinks outside. You need to make sure that area out front is kept clear. And what I explained to this, to make sure you're looking for the signs of people going into Roach's Court or, you know, loitering around those areas and, you know, refusing service if these people don't, you know, respect the conditions.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've heard about potential for cigarette butts to be thrown in the location and perhaps even disposable vapes, which is a topical problem as well. How would you deal with those?
So actually, again, you know, something that I've been looking at that was actually what I found at festivals with these little boxes you put your cigarette butts in. Because I don't want a thing on the wall or, you know, because I don't want people loitering around smoking cigarettes. But you get these little boxes that they pushed at festivals a lot, so I'm looking to get some of those for it. So they'll be by the door, people are going out for cigarettes, they can take the little box, and that's for stubbing your cigarette out in. So that's the idea that I've got, because again, I don't want to litter the streets. I've got green credentials because I want to be clean. I want to be a clean business. I don't, you know, I want less plastic waste. I don't want waste covering the streets. And that's another one of my ideas. I didn't write it down, but you may have seen these things at festivals and such. You've a little tiny little ashtray, basically. And that's something that I want to have available in my shop for people that are going out for cigarettes. The vapes, it's tricky, really, apart from telling my customers, like, if you finish with your vape, I've got, you know, I can recycle the battery for you. Please don't throw it on the street. Again, being reasonable with people. If their vapes run out, hopefully they'll come in and say, have you got a bin? You know, again, looking at my clientele, it's the clientele that probably would do that rather than throw it on the street.
Okay, thank you. All right, any questions? Councillor Calvert, please.
The archway area seems to be, is very obviously the bone of contention here for Norwich. Visibility of that archway from your shop seems to be quite limited apart from the door.
Yeah.
I was wondering about your CCTV coverage. I wonder if you could recap, would the CCTV cover that area? And in a second, I'll be asking the objectors their views on the same.
Yeah. So CCTV wouldn't be covering that area. It would only be covering the immediate vicinity outside my shop. But there again, if I've got a view on that and I see people steering the wrong way, then that's when I can intervene and say, sorry, you mustn't congregate here or smoke here. You must steer around the other side. In bad weather, I can also provide umbrellas for people too.
For the objectors, in large respect, the same. Do you take a view as to whether you would like, should the application go ahead, would you like to see more surveillance of the archway, or would you feel that would be an invasion of your privacy, or do you have a view on any of that?
I have a view that I wouldn't like that because I would think it's invasive, intrusive. Having said that, it is a way of monitoring what's going on there. But it's part of the same problem. Mr. Press cannot keep popping out of his shop doorway to stick his head around the corner to see what's going on, nor can his member of staff. It's just impractical. It's not operable. So that is the issue. You know, there's a brick wall between his bar and what's going on the other side of it. I don't know what you thought.
I'll try and start point here. I've got, I have a camera over my balcony door, and the police have a couple of recordings. I've had someone threaten to come and kick my head in, and it's great quality. Those new cameras are super. Cameras. I work in a place where we have 6 cameras at my work. They just take pictures of people. They don't solve the problem. They just take pictures. Unless you've got a police presence that can run down and do something, identify people and follow up, they're just pictures. Yeah. So they have very limited use of them.
So, yes.
Sorry, just to touch on the point of not being able to leave my shop, I need to go back to the point that it's not a high volume shop with, I'm not having a queue at the bar of people drinking, so therefore I do actually have the time to nip out and check those areas if I feel there's something happening there, if I can hear something, there is an opportunity when you're not doing high volume sales, when you've got 16 people in your shop, you're not got a queue of those 16 people at a time. People take half an hour, 40 minutes to have a drink, do they? So it's not going to be, it's not that vibe, it's not a bar like that, it's a bottle shop.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Calvert?
It does, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I've got a few more questions. I think we better go through
I've
the...
got one or two as well.
Okay, actually, Councillor Kidman first, please, while I formulate mine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is aimed at mainly at you, Mr. Rapley, if I may, but Mr. Ball, if you want to add anything, it's on page 33 of our pack. I don't know if you've got the same one, and it's about preventing public nuisance. And I note that Mr. Rapley, you've mentioned the ribs of beef, which is obviously a close neighbour, being well managed and exercising neighbourly consideration, responsibility towards local residents, but also, the streets have a large number of, there are a number of pubs and there's a large number of people. Just to get a picture of exactly what is happening, given that the ribs of beef in particular is well managed, what do you think is going on out there? What is the main issue with the antisocial behaviour, given that one of your near neighbours is well managed?
The difference is it's not right next door to the entrance to Roach's Court, and it's that simple. He's got outside areas for which he has a licence, a pavement licence, and an outside area at the back of the pub, and it's very well managed. And the simple fact is he's not next door to the entrance to Roach's Court. That's what it is. I mean, if Mr. Press's bar or off licence, or whatever he wants to refer to it as, was not next door to the entrance, I'd have no issue with it anywhere down Winston Street. But it is.
Thank you.
So that's it. Sorry. I mean, I can...
Okay, so do you think there is anything that Mr. Press could offer, do? And you've heard that Mr. Press does intend to look after the area. Is there anything that Mr. Press could do to reassure you that he will meet the same standards as the ribs of beef in terms of his management of the area?
No, I don't think he can, because it's a physical issue of building proximity. It's nothing to do with Mr. Press's ability or training or skill set. It's a building proximity issue.
Okay, but we have heard that you believe that the people that are currently causing problems in the archway and round the back are not coming from the ribs of beef, so they must be coming from
I don't think they are.
elsewhere. So they must be coming from elsewhere,
yeah,
that are not directly next to your block of flats.
Correct.
So there's a slight contradiction there.
No, not really, because this is going to provide a constant source of people standing and smoking in the driveway. And one of my main concerns is harassment of drivers getting into the block of flats.
Yes, a question.
That hasn't been raised yet.
Yeah, that leads me on to my question. Yeah, so
elderly, and a lot of them expressed concerns already to me about people. When people have had a few drinks, they become a bit obstreperous. It doesn't matter how respectable they are, or how much they pay for their beer. If they don't want to move out of the way, they won't move out of the way, and sometimes they'll just get nasty.
Okay. So a number of objectors have identified the gateway to the entrance. That's a driveway with parking.
Yeah.
And it is there. So there's a potential flashpoint for confrontation.
Absolutely.
With customers. Is this an existing problem?
Occasionally, yes, but very rarely. But it will be with people regularly congregating in that area.
Okay. We've heard from Mr. Press that he feels he's able to manage that area so that there won't be people congregating there, and it's for us to decide whether whether the management of that will be successful. Do you accept that Mr. Press will try to manage that area? And he made in his own submission a point that it could actually improve the situation for people living there. Do you accept that that could happen if it was well managed?
Well, it would be silly of me to say that it couldn't, but I think it's highly unlikely.
Okay. For what reason?
Sheer numbers. The numbers going into the bar. And people wanting to go out. People go out and smoke cigarettes all the time, or vape, which is a kind of
Okay.
and there's nowhere else for them to go. I mean, Mr. Presser said, I'll move them on. Where's he going to move them on to?
Okay. Mr. Would you like to expand on that?
Just a couple of things. It varies, and as Mr. Reckley says, increased numbers increases activity. I've cleaned up plenty of glasses, pub glasses from outside, broken and unbroken. They put them on the ledge there by the breezeway. Inside the breezeway, people come out the pub. I wouldn't swear which pub. I'm not there. I come out in the morning and take care of that. Broken glass is a fairly regular event out there. Again, I can't say which pub. And I'll agree, certainly of late, the Rivers of Beach doing a fine job. However, we've had the councils, they subcontracted out. We've had them out twice for issues with the people out the back there. They have a seating area. They start encroaching on what is a public right of way. We've had the contractor out twice to insist they fall back within the lines that they're demarked to put the chairs and tables, and we had people underneath the balcony smoking for a year before we got the council out to put a stop to that. So they're responsible now, yes, and do better now, but it hasn't been without its issues over the years.
Okay, thank you. I think we've covered a lot of the issues. Is there anything that you think that we haven't covered that you would like to? And again, I'll invite councillors to ask questions. Would you like to go first, Councillor Gibbons?
Thank you, Chair. We've talked a lot about the outside of in the street and the covered archway and the proximity. Haven't talked a lot about inside the premises. I'm just looking at the plan here on page 24. You've got a picture of the shop floor. You mentioned right at the start that you are expecting there to be 16 people generally in your premises, could be up to 20 for tastings. Obviously in the plan, we haven't got where the bar area is, the serving area. We haven't got whether you have seating at the bar, how many tables you've got. I'm just trying to get a picture of what's happening
bar,
inside.
It's a shop. It'll be a counter. There'll be a small counter. There'll be a big double fridge. I will also have it's called a cake cooler, a big cake cooler. Oh yeah, just turn this on. There will be a counter for service. That counter as well, I'm looking to have on wheels, so I can push that away when I'm doing tastings, so I can create that little bit of extra space. In the window, that's where I intend to have a seating in the window, so that'll be for 6 people in the window, and then you can look in the middle of the room, bang in the middle, they're still leaving the fire escape route from the back to the front, would be 1 table with 2 benches or 6 to 8 stools. So yeah, and then I envisage another 2 people being able to be there to get service, or standing. So I think that's where we're looking at 8. So a table in the middle that can fit 8, 6 seats at the window, and then we've got room for 2 more. So that's where I came to 16. Yeah, I do recently have kind of drawn up some plans. I guess before spending lots of money on getting plans drawn up, I wanted to get the licence in place, you know, because, you know, with drawing plans for a shop, it can be quite expensive, you know, to looking at the fit out. But yeah, that is my vision. 6 by the window, 8 in the middle, and then, you know, you've got room for 2 more standing, or, you know, going to pick up some beers from the fridge, you know. But again, in general, it's the bottle shop and it is this takeout side of business that I want. As you saw, the growler filler is for, you know, people to take away to take home. Did you you got all that information so people can have a take home growler filler? And this is something that I think will attract people to my business to take home, because it's something interesting. And when I started my business in the delivery side of things, it was very much about getting interesting beers to people that, you know, couldn't go to the pub or get out. And I want to, you know, do this again. And I find my clientele at the phone box as well are people that want to take home, you know, with young families like myself who want to try different craft beers. They can't be at the pub, you know, all the time, you know, but they want to try different things. And this is an opportunity for those people to try them. So yeah, that's my rough plan.
Thank you, Mr. Saul. Press. Sorry. So it's a counter rather than a bar.
Yeah.
Again, on the plan, you've got the door leading to the back. You've got a toilet, and just one question about that, whether, I assume it's a public toilet, but obviously you have to walk through a sink and storage area. So I wanted to firstly clarify that that's a public toilet, and then secondly ask you about the storage and how that will be managed and secured.
Yeah, so the toilet is a public toilet. In terms of storage, as I say, everything really is going to be on that shop floor. That storage area is for stationery, those kind of bits that, you know, I might want to put away. And also, I'm looking to put some storage for any boxes in there. So we use boxes, cardboard boxes from the cans. So again, there'll be a bin with the storage. So yeah, because I don't want to leave stuff, especially paper stuff, out on the street. So it's to look like a bin storage back there. There'll be the glass wash will be back there as well. So yeah, there won't be any valuables. Does that make sense?
That does make sense, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Calvert, do you have any more questions at this stage? So I'm going to ask Michelle. So we've heard from objectors and Mr. Press. Have you heard anything from either objectors that increase your concerns, or have you been further reassured by Mr. Press's address today?
I have to say, I do acknowledge, and I still can understand for the residents that live so close, the concerns in relation to people congregating immediately outside. They might not be disorderly, that might just be that they are just outside, whether they're just sort of talking and sort of congregating. But in terms of what we've heard and from our experience with Mr. Press, I haven't got any sort of further concerns. But again, I do understand for those that live nearby.
Okay. In relation to this application, are you reassured by the answers that you've heard from Mr. Press?
Yes, and it was interesting that Councillor Calvert was looking at the CCTV element of monitoring. That was something that I'd also sort of considered whether we discuss that with Mr. Press, because although he wouldn't necessarily be responsible for the whole thing, if he had that extra camera and the residents were happy, he could at least just view on the monitor rather than have to keep popping out. He could view and see if there were groups there. So again, that was something that was useful to discuss and maybe worth exploring at some point.
Okay, thank you. So with that in mind, if the panel were minded to grant an application in whatever form, would you consider it valuable to have a camera trained on that particular area. I'm not asking you to rubber stamp the application. I'm just saying, would that be acceptable to you?
We'd have to ask all of the residents.
Yes.
Because some might find it very intrusive.
You prefer to have your own internal consultation on that?
What I'm saying
yes.
is, Mr. James, I don't know. I have
yes.
to ask them.
Okay.
Some people think that it's intrusive and don't want to be filmed coming in and out of their own properties, and some may think it's a good idea. I can't speak for them.
Okay. You can speak for yourselves.
I speak for myself, yeah, I don't particularly like it, but it might help.
Okay. Mr. Point.
It doesn't make a head of beans really one way or the other. I don't see great. I don't want to
you have explained your views on
fixed crime,
CCTV.
there wouldn't be any, so yeah, that's
okay.
how I feel.
The police do use CCTV of this kind to make representations, certainly to us, and probably for criminal activity as well.
I just thought that would help him monitor and manage it.
Yes.
And to keep going outside, you could see what activity was taking place, and if there were groups and things congregating.
Okay, Councillor Calvert and then Mr. Best.
In relation to the privacy concerns, would it make a difference if that were a non-recorded monitoring only CCTV, in the sense of it would replace a window, in the sense that our applicant would then be able to view that area, but not necessarily record if the comings and goings, just be aware of what's happening outside? Would that make any difference to you?
Yeah, I guess if the committee was...
Of course, what would be the purpose would be, as you say, it's a window. If you're looking to persecute the recalcitrants, then it would have no value because you need to record it for evidence purposes for the police.
It would remove some of the benefit, wouldn't it?
Yes.
If it was not recorded.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Let's. Clearly, that would be something for residents to discuss with Mr. Press, should the committee be minded to grant an application, and that's a determination that we have to make. So we have to now go through some of the detail, and I'm afraid that does take quite some time. So as we've been here approximately an hour and a half, I think we should have 10 minutes break, if that's okay with everybody, and then we'll return at let's say 12:15. And then we'll try and wrap it up from there. Okay. Thank you to everybody. We'll close Okay, welcome back to Norwich City Council Licensing Subcommittee, 20th of September 2023. We're discussing the application for a licence for 22A Wenston Street and the name of the company being Beer Hatch. So thank you everyone for coming back. We have, just for members of the public, we've lost one of our objectors who hasn't been able to return for this part of the meeting, but we still have Mr. Rapley and the applicant. Okay, so I noticed there was some discussion outside during the break. Are there any further issues that either of you would like to bring up, or any further addresses before we go on to the detail? Mr. Rapley first.
Something I put in my latest paper was a potential risk of injury or even death, I guess, from the electrically operated gates affording access to the property. And it's a risk that Mr. Press might take, in that if one of his clients is injured by those gates, the liability would be his. So I just pointed it out to him as a friendly warning, really, to make sure that he was aware of what might happen. And if there's a lawyer here, I'm a lawyer by training, it's impossible to reduce the liability for death or injury under, I think it is, Unfair Contract Terms Act 1977, under such circumstances. So it's just something to be aware of. Those gates are very, very heavy. They're operated from a zapper inside the car, and then they close automatically. So if there's somebody in the way and the safety functions don't operate, that's a danger.
Okay, thank you. That risk already exists, doesn't it, to those that are already congregated?
Yes, it does, but again, it's a function of numbers in the area. So. Yeah.
Okay, that's noted by the committee. Thank you. Okay, so I'll ask Ryan now to put his mic on, and we'll go through the operating schedule and just clarify a few points, maybe ask you to add or remove wording where necessary, or where you think is necessary.
Good afternoon. So we're just having a look at your operating schedule on page 17 of the agenda pack. The committee will normally take what is said in the operating schedule as your effective suggestions for what may be included in conditions to any premises licence that may be granted should the committee make that decision. So what we'd like to do, or what the committee would like to do, is clarify what conditions you are putting forward as what may be included in the premises licence should that decision be made. Now, at the moment, it's not exactly clear what conditions you are proposing to be added to your licence, if that were to be granted. So I'm going to go through the operating schedule that you've put forward, and just pull things out that I think you may be saying. I'm just asking whether that's the case, or whether you're putting something forward that's not that, effectively.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So this is an opportunity, so just for members of the public, an opportunity for the applicant to specify exactly what conditions he will be prepared to be bound by, and with a note to yourself that these will form part of your operating schedule, and breaches of anything that you submit will potentially lead to review. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of starting at the very top of the operating schedule, the first potential condition that we can see in there is not to sell to anyone underage or intoxicated. Is that something you're suggesting is a condition?
Yeah.
Okay. And then going forward, the next one that we can see is safety and first aid equipment available on site.
Yeah, it can be a condition.
I should say there is one in the interim that says keep vigilant. I'm reading it as vigilant for any crime or antisocial behaviour. It is put forward as vigilante, but I'm assuming it means vigilant. Now, the committee will be wary of any condition that is put forward as to whether it's enforceable or not.
Yeah, I don't think that's an enforceable condition.
As to whether that's an enforceable condition or not. So, in terms of the safety and first aid equipment available on site statement that you've made there.
Yeah.
Is there any safety and first aid equipment that you're thinking of specifically?
Just a generic first aid box is what I was envisaging with, you know, I've done first aid training as well, but they need updating every few years. First aid box.
Moving to the next part, staff will receive training in relation to the sale of alcohol. Is there any particular training that you are specifying? I know you said before that you would give a pack of some sorts when you're training your staff. Is there any more specific examples that you'll give as to what training your staff may receive?
No, I would just make a training pack within, you know, to go through how to look for intoxication, as to be discussed, intoxication, looking out for drug misuse, underage. So it'll be those three key areas, you know, along with training on how to keep beer, how to serve beer as well. So there'll be a small training pack that I'll go through with staff and they'll sign that off.
Thank you. And then the final sentence in that part of your schedule is training records to be kept at the premises and made available to police or licensing authority on request. Is that still acceptable?
Yeah.
And
can I ask how long you will keep your training records for?
So with that, there's so training record that they've signed off.
Yes. Will you be introducing regular training or additional training?
There'll be I guess with that staff yearly kind of top ups to make sure they've still, you know, got that in the forefront of their mind, and especially if there's any incidents, well, that's another thing to look at with that training.
Okay, so are you offering that as a condition, an annual training programme?
Annual training programme, yeah.
Okay. And how long will you keep those records? Will you keep them indefinitely for staff that are retained?
So I think there's GDPR on this, so I'll just have to check the legality of how long I can keep any of those records.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, for the maximum period, I'm happy to keep those records. I think there's GDPR implications on how long you can keep staff training records.
Yes, there are. I believe if they're with you, if they remain with you, you can keep the records, but it's after they leave.
There we go. So if they remain with me, they'll be kept.
Shall we suggest 12 months, maybe an appropriate period if the staff member remains?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a yearly review, a yearly signature, yearly top up on those training. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Sorry.
Thank you. So moving down to the prevention of crime and disorder licensing objective. Again, you've got the vigilant for crime and disorder and report anything suspicious to the police. Is there any further clarity you'd like to give to that? So I know you were talking with the committee before as to reporting suspicious behaviour, reporting public urination, and those kinds of things. But in terms of the enforceability of licensing conditions and making sure that there are specific things that people can look to and say, this is what your condition is, what is it that you're saying to the committee that you'd like them to put on the licence?
So if there's anything on my CCTV that is crime and disorder, then I will report that to the police and tell them I have the CCTV. They'll be available for 28 days. So anything recorded on my CCTV that I see as, you know, if I don't see, because I'm not going to look through my CCTV every day when I'm not there, it's going to have to be in my operating hours. If I notice anything, that will be reported to the police.
Okay. So there are CCTV conditions that you've offered further down here.
Yeah.
But would it be fair to say that the condition that you're offering is something more akin to if a criminal offence is recorded on your CCTV cameras, you'll report that to the police within 7 days?
Yeah.
Would
that sounds.
Is that more akin to what you're saying? This is something that you're offering to the committee, so I can't put words in your mouth.
So if I see any crime disorder on my CCTV, I'll report that to the police within 7 days. Okay. Yeah, happy with that.
Okay. So, you previously talked about a policy you would have to intervene in any situations before they escalated. Is there anything that you'd like to relate to that and put in the operating schedule. So you've said here we'll keep vigilant for crime and disorder and report anything suspicious to the police. But there appears from what you said earlier there'll be a process before this stage. So would you like to add that?
Yeah, so we're talking about discussing with a relevant party. So I will approach, if it's within my shop, then there will be displaying relevant information. So as part of the condition, I will display relevant information about loitering outside the area of Roach's Court and my shop door. So there'll be displayed information there. And then in terms of, I suppose then it's also telling the customers as well that are leaving if they're going out for e-cigarettes. So I'm trying to think how to put it in a condition way. That I definitely have the notices. You pop something in the conditions that you said.
I was going to say that since the police have suggested patrons will be discouraged from congregating outside the premises as one of their suggested additions.
Yeah.
So how do we put that into a?
That's not enforceable.
Which is not enforceable.
Posters or something.
Yeah, so posters are enforceable.
PSPO posters would be.
Yeah, and along with posters about the area, Roach's Court, and the outside immediate area not being, used for congregation.
Okay, so you plan to use signage to discourage customers from using the courtyard outside,
Exactly.
where the gates are, and the area at the back of the.
Yeah, that's a good idea with the area out the back as well.
The back.
I'm happy to have posters displaying that. In terms of me approaching people, I'm not sure if that is again enforceable in terms of conditions, really, that I'm to go out and tell people, although it's something that I will do. In terms of it being a condition on there, it's going to be hard to put it down in any way. But I think the posters displayed can be added to the conditions.
Okay, right. Is that sufficient detail?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll add that on to the end of the police's suggested condition, if that's acceptable to the committee and the applicant.
Okay, so just to confirm, you've offered that as a condition.
As a condition.
Okay.
Thank you. So moving through the schedule, we have the next sentence which relates to cash being kept in a safe and banks. That's not normally something we'd see on a licence condition. I'm not sure if that was intended to be offered as a condition.
No, I suppose that's something for my own safety more than anything else. So I wouldn't put that down as a condition. I think with nowadays everything being very cashless, there's not going to be a massive need for that as a condition.
So you wish to remove that?
Yeah.
So that's removed. Keeping up to date with local notices of crime in the area and make sure that you take relevant precautions. Are there any, and this is a question perhaps to the police, pub watch schemes or publication schemes or anything like that in the area?
There is a late night Norwich licensing forum, which happens a couple of times a year. So, that could be worth sort of putting that on there. Attendance of a local pub watch or licensing forum is in the process of changing at the moment, so I don't want to sort of give it that name because it might not be that, but there is a local pub watch scheme.
And is that organised by Norfolk Police?
No, we attend it, but it's actually done by licensees within the Quincy Wells Road. But all are welcome. We have sort of different licensees from St Benedict's and Bedford Street as well that attend.
Thank you. So in terms of enforceability of, very sorry, I've lost the condition now on my page. We'll keep up to date with local notices and taking relevant precautions. The police have very, very helpfully said that there is a local licensing forum biannually, I think you said, twice a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, roughly.
Sometimes more than that, but I wouldn't want him to commit to more if they then sort of end up being less.
So is that something that, to make that condition more specific, you'd be willing to agree to inclusion on your licence?
Yeah, that I attend the late night.
Twice a year?
Twice a year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that something that...
Does that sound right? Yeah. That's good for me, yeah.
Would that be something that you'd be agreed with, Chair?
It could, if the applicant wants to add it to the conditions.
Yeah, I'm
it
happy
would
to add
be,
that to conditions, yeah.
You could add that to the end of that line at different times by joining the local licensing forum.
Yeah.
In whatever form it takes.
Yeah. If we say you've agreed to it in the form of the local licensing forum, given that the name seems to be changing.
That's quite generic.
CCTV to cover the main public areas and immediately outside. I believe you said that it was one CCTV camera inside and one immediately outside.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, would you be happy to that being updated to one CCTV camera and maintain one inside and one outside?
One inside, one outside. That's
as a minimum.
Yep. There's a, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, of course.
So we talked earlier about the possibility of extending CCTV for the protection, potential protection of the area that leads through to Roach's Court. And of course, there would need to be a consultation amongst residents there. But would you be willing to add that condition should it be agreed?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So we need to come up with some wording that is suitable.
Which condition was that, sorry?
So the point that Councillor Calvert brought up about the prospect of having CCTV camera trained on the undercover area that is the subject of most of the objections.
Because that could be either as well on just a viewing basis or recording basis as well, depending on consultation with
that would be subject to consultation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next part again with CCTV is footage to record for a minimum of 28 days. I believe it was confirmed to be 28 days.
Yes, that's right, sorry.
And to be available to police or licensing authority on request. In terms of that condition, I would just query record or retained. You record, did you mean you'd retain it for a minimum of 28 days?
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the police here, would it be best if that condition was to be suggested as CCTV of an evidential quality? Yeah. So is that something that you'd be happy to agree to as a proposed licensing condition, if there's obviously one that you're proposing to the authority, which would then read as CCTV footage to be retained for a minimum of 28 days and to be available, CCTV footage of an evidential quality to be retained for a minimum of 28 days and to be available to the police or licensing authority on request?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the implication of that is that the CCTV that you install needs to be of a good quality for purpose of identification, I guess.
Thank you. So in terms of public safety, there's something that you've referred to as first aid equipment and first aid training. Is that something that you intended to be included as a condition or something that you just wanted to inform the committee of?
Just that I wanted to inform the committee of training, yeah.
Thank you. The CCTV footage has already been dealt with, and you confirmed that was a minimum of 28 days, not a minimum of 30 days, and that was discussed before. Staff aware of health and safety and fire safety responsibilities. Again, is that something that you wish the committee to be aware of, given that obviously the Fire and Rescue Service and various other authorities have enforcement powers over premises, or is it something that you were suggesting as a licensing condition?
I think just aware of.
To be aware of. Thank you.
Okay, so the fire and safety is outside of the scope of the committee.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Similarly, with fire extinguishers to be kept on site, is that something you were suggesting as a license condition, I beg your pardon, or is that something you wish to make the committee aware of?
The committee aware of.
Thank you. And finally, in that paragraph, there will be limited seating inside to avoid overcrowding. Are you offering the committee a condition which would effectively state the amount of seats that would be within the premises, or are you informing the committee that effectively for their information that you're going to limit the amount of seating? Because to make it enforceable, you'd have to effectively say we're having an X amount of seats inside.
I think it's just to make them aware of with the small space.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so with that particular condition or not, you've made us aware that you'll have 16, maximum of 20.
Yeah.
Without conditioning it, you have, I believe you have no limits.
There is.
Apart from the fire and safety.
Yeah. There are fire and safety limits.
Okay, so are you aware of your fire and safety limit for the premises?
I haven't put all my furniture. So with the fire and safety limits, I spoke to the fire representative, and he said to get the actual limits, you need to put the furniture in there, because it's all on how much fridge space you're using, how much tables and chairs you've got in there, your keg cooler. So yeah, as soon as I have that information, as soon as I'm in there, then I'll know how much space will be taken up with the counter, with my fridges, with the seating,
okay.
And that will give me the fire and safety, exactly how many the limit is. But looking at a 25-metre floor space there, if they're all seated, I think I looked, it was so 25 people would be maximum, and that's with no other furniture in there, if we're just all seating.
Okay, if we were minded to grant a licence, it would enable you to just have an open area where you could have 25 seats and serve from a hatch at the back.
Yeah.
So would you prefer, therefore, to limit the numbers so that the committee and residents are aware of a maximum number?
Yeah, if that's something you think would help,
I'm asking you if you think it would help.
Yeah, I think it might help. Yeah.
Okay,
I think to have a limit on the maximum people.
Okay. So are you limiting the maximum to 20?
Should we say 22? Does that sound fair? And then we've got enough space for people to come in.
I think at this point it's what you're offering to the committee.
Yeah, should we say a limit of 22 then, maximum?
Okay. So that 22, does that limit the number of people that can be inside your shop at any one time? So, for example, if you had 18 seated, 5 customers came in to buy some beer, would that would potentially be a breach? I think Michelle was going to come in.
I was
Have you
just
got
going to
something
clarify
relevant?
if it was including staff or not, just to make sure.
Again, we're not trying to ambush you.
I know, it's just hard to say, isn't it? Without being in there, it's quite hard to envisage anything, isn't it, with those sides of things. So obviously I don't want to limit customers being able to come in for takeout. Why don't we say a maximum of 20 seated? With that, that as a condition, a maximum of 20 people seated, and on premises drinking. So a maximum of 20 people on premises. So then anyone who came in to buy drinks to take away, to take home, they're not, that would be a takeout.
So you wouldn't include takeout customers as a limit to the number of people in the shop?
So again, I suppose it's looking at the fire regulations as well there, of how many people would be allowed as well. So I need to check, because I wouldn't be able to have, 25 of them. It's actually fire regulations said no.
I think it would be difficult to try and place the doors.
I think the fire officer will tell you.
Yeah. So you come, so I've spoken to the fire officer and he said, when you get everything in there, you work out, your maximum capacity there.
Ryan, how does this sit then?
So it could be worded as the maximum number of persons on the premises engaging in regulated activities seated at any one time shall be no more than 20. Then there should be no need to exclusive of staff, because staff should not be engaged in regulated activity when they're working. Hopefully.
Sorry, Ryan, people who are buying alcohol, they're also engaging in regulated activity, aren't they?
My apologies, seated.
Oh, seated and engaged.
And engaged in regulated activity.
Okay, Councillor Calvert, you had your hand up. Is that the point that you're going to make? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right.
Thank you. So moving down to the prevention of public nuisance. Again, the first sentence, is that some, I'm going to say that's probably something that you're not offering as a condition rather than that's just for information. We
Yeah.
restrict you to just serving. That would be the only thing you could then serve. If that was a condition, then the only thing that you could serve in your
Then what makes up a speciality
would be specialty
I mean,
beer.
how are
You'd
you
have
going to
to
define it, I
specialty
guess?
beer.
You'd have to define it. So I think we'll just put that as a suggestion. I'm happy
As a
to put it where you could.
No open containers of alcohol will be sold for off sales.
Yeah.
So that is a condition.
Condition, yeah.
We will refuse service to anyone drunk or under the influence of drugs.
Condition.
Offers a condition. Anyone who appears to be drunk or under the influence of drugs.
I mean, that's all very under
Yeah.
grey area, so there's more of a suggestion there. It's hard to define if someone. I mean, I know what it appears to, but I think putting it down to conditions can be.
We will refuse service to anyone who we think is supplying alcohol to someone who is drunk or under the influence of drugs.
Condition.
Now, anyone we witness to be a public nuisance will report to the police.
So that kind of goes back to the one that we put before, wasn't it? About the
CCTV.
within 1 week, yeah?
Thank you.
So
So in which case, are you happy for that to, well, are you withdrawing that as a
I withdraw
additional
that as, yeah,
condition?
we've already covered that.
We will have material clearly displayed promoting responsible drinking or promote responsible drinking. Any idea as to the kind of material, or is it the material that the police are suggesting in terms of?
Yeah, more the
PSDA?
material the police are suggesting, I think.
Okay.
Makes sense.
In which case, would that be a duplicate condition and therefore
Yeah,
withdrawn?
so we withdraw that.
Thank you. Protection from children from harm. Operating the Challenge 25 scheme. Is that still the case? And
Yes, yeah.
And the sort of the bit that comes after it as well. I won't read the whole thing out, but there's the rest of it.
Yeah.
We'll refuse service to anyone we suspect is buying alcohol for a child.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll keep a record of any time we have had to ID someone. Now, that would seem to replicate the refusal to book condition that the police had suggested and has been agreed to. So is that withdrawn?
Yeah.
Thank you. Staff will receive training in relation to the sale of alcohol. Training records will be kept. I believe we have another.
We've already got that
done.
condition,
Yeah. So is that withdrawn as duplicate?
Yeah.
Thank you. I believe that takes us to the end of the schedule. And all of the police conditions are agreed, I believe.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, police conditions agreed with the amendment to the first one.
With the amendments of that one.
Okay. Are there any other conditions that you would like to offer following the debate we've had today?
I think I've gone through. Yeah, unless there's anything that.
Okay, I was going to ask Mr. Rapley if there's any conditions. Should the committee be minded to grant any form of licence? Are there any further conditions that you would suggest to make to make it more palatable for residents?
Yes, thank you. Two, in the application, the opening hours are all day and all night every day, whereas during the meeting, Mr. Press alluded to a much greatly reduced opening hours and 2 days a week being closed. We referred to Sunday and Monday being closed and the opening hours for the rest of the week being much truncated. So if we could specify those and make those a condition, it would be much more amenable to everybody, I guess, should the committee grant a licence. So is that possible? Because that's what Mr. Press alluded to earlier.
Okay, well, again, that's up to Mr. Press. I think he explained to the committee that he wanted to have some flexibility within that for occasional events, and we heard that they may be once every fortnight. Would you like to change that at all?
Yeah, I mean, so if it was going to help, put the registered court at ease, I'm happy to change the licensing hours if that's going to help. Should we look at, so I'm just conscious of the last drink. So say we said, I still want to keep the Sunday and Monday operating. So should we say, instead of the 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock opening for every day. So instead of 9 o'clock, we look at 10 a.m.
Okay, so
openings.
you're offering on each day on the this is page 16 of the pack.
Yeah.
Currently, the opening hours open to the public are
9.
9 on each day. You'd like to change
Should we change that to
Monday
10?
to Sunday to 10 o'clock.
Monday to Sunday to 10 o'clock. And then should we say on Sunday an 8 p.m. finish as the latest?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, are you
I'm
offering
suggesting offering 8 p.m. finish on a Sunday. I'd like to keep, so the Monday to Thursday, there's 10:30. 10:30, so I'd like to change that to 10:30.
So you're offering at 10:30 there will be no more customers in your shop.
So what have we said? I'm just thinking because you've got the customers in the shop and you've got the licensing hours, haven't we here? So
These are conditions that you're or they're the operating schedule that you're offering.
yeah, so customers in the shop, no more customers in the shop by 10:30. I think that's safe. If we put down 11, so 10:30, no more customers in the shop.
Okay, and
That's the Monday to Thursday, and 11 p.m. on the Friday and Saturday, no more customers in the shop.
Can I ask a quick question?
yes, Councillor Kidman, please.
Thank you. When we were discussing your proposed sort of operational opening hours, we were saying that Mondays and Sundays your premises would be closed. Are you thinking of actually stipulating some opening hours for those days in order that you can then run an event if you want to?
Yeah, exactly. Looking at those, to have that flexibility on a Sunday, a Monday, whether again bank holiday Mondays might be something that there's going to be more people around the city, so it might be something I'd be interested in opening up for special events on a bank holiday Monday. So to have that Monday having some operating hours, I think would be important for my business, and again on Sunday as well. So yeah, and then I think reducing the hours.
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you. That's noted. Councillor Calvert.
I'm just wondering if at 10:30 closing time might present difficulties in relationship with your customers, although 11 o'clock closing time finished many years ago. People have a perception that sort of 11 o'clock is the earliest places close, and I wonder if that might cause conflict with your customers. So a possibility.
Like I say, it's hard to make assumptions, but I think again with my clientele, I think I can be safe. Even when I'm running an event, to say the event closes at 10:30, everyone out. I think if this is going to help, I don't want to cause any friction with the residents there. And if that's going to help with their mind at ease, that also it's going to stagger maybe the throw-out times from other venues there. If we're a little bit earlier, then it kind of saves everyone being all out on the streets at the same time, even though it's an earlier finish. But hopefully my clientele will warm to it, and it's going to be, like I said, I think from the phone box I close at 7 p.m, 7 p.m. Having till 10:30 p.m, and I can also use temporary event notices if there are some special occasions where I want to have some late finishes or a special event that I think will run over, then we can discuss temporary event notices for those.
Okay. That option is always open.
Yeah.
So logically, having changed the hours that you're open, you would wish to change the hours where you're supplying alcohol. So do you wish to match that, match the hours that we've just discussed for the opening hours with the supply of alcohol? So from 10 in the morning to the times you've given in the evening, less the 15 minutes, I think it is, that the
drinking up time, 15 minutes for on sales.
Asked.
Yeah,
Okay.
Let's match those hours, yeah.
So that covers that without going through in great detail, doesn't it? Councillor Kidman.
Sorry. Thank you. Also, talking of matching, on page 11 and 12, you've got the standard days and timings for providing recorded music. So if that needs to match up, then that's something to consider as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a a point here that we didn't actually make earlier, and that is that you don't need a licence for recorded music.
So we can take that, the recorded music part out.
So that
Noise
actually
can be able to have background music.
Yes,
that can be crossed through with the hours that you've
Exactly. It's
offered.
only if I was to play between 11 and 12, I
Yeah.
think, then it'd be a problem. If I'm reducing those Friday hours to 11.
But you have also offered, as part of your submission today verbally to us, that you will work with residents to ensure that the level of music is not
disturbing.
intrusive. Yeah. Okay. Should that be part of a condition? It probably should be added to the schedule. If you're offering that as a...
Yeah, so to speak, work with the local residents on music,
okay.
yes.
Okay, so therefore,
music level.
are you willing therefore to provide a contact point, a telephone number?
Yes,
or
I have already, I did send letters to them with my contact number, but there'll be another, I'll make sure they'll have my contact number if they find it's disturbing them.
Okay. And they will be able to use that at any time during your opening hours?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Rapley?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, sorry, I'm slightly confused now with regard to opening hours. Can we just clarify here? Are the opening hours in default with regard to Sunday and Monday? Sunday and Monday are closed unless Mr. Press makes a special application via a TEN to open.
No, not as I understand this, Mr. Press.
That's what he alluded to in the early meeting.
Okay, so
closed on Sunday and Monday.
So for the purposes of this submission, Mr. Press has told the committee that he intends currently to close Monday and Sunday, but wishes to have the licence operating for those days should he wish to have special events on those days.
Should I wish to be open on a bank holiday?
So it will enable Mr. Press to open on those days should he wish to ignore his own submission. However, I imagine if we were minded to give this licence, we would hear about those open times from residents.
Yeah, okay. You asked for conditions. The other one I was going to allude to, which you'll probably reject, because it's not enforceable, was that if Mr. Press undertook to keep Roach's Court entrance clear of all people during his opening hours, then that would be very much welcome.
I think clearly that will be unenforceable, especially in relation to people that are not his customers.
Deemed to ignore the PSPO or the congregation part order, then they will be refused service. Is that, like you would refuse service to someone who's drunk? If someone says, "I know I'm not moving," then I'll refuse service. That's the only thing I could think of. I don't know how that would work as a condition.
Okay. In terms of a condition, I guess you could write that service will be refused to anybody who congregates in the covered area adjacent to the premises.
Again,
it's really woolly. Yeah.
It is very difficult to enforce.
It's not. I think our legal advice is that it will not be enforceable. So, thank you for the suggestion, Mr. Rapley. But the committee will have to consider that point on the basis of what we've heard as a management control. Would you like to?
It leaves us with the original problem then of people congregating in the covered area.
Okay. So have you heard anything, and especially with the conditions that have been put in, have you heard anything that puts your mind at some rest? Presumably you're not withdrawing or objection.
I can't withdraw the objection, no, sorry.
Okay.
It's not personal. It's just I want to live peacefully and quietly in our flat. I see this as something that will cause us vexation. So I'm sorry.
Okay, that's noted. Okay. Ryan, is there anything further? Anything, Florence? Okay, any more questions? Okay, so I'll take what you've just said as a summary of your views, and then so finally I'll ask Mr. Press to just address the committee one more time if you wish to, keeping it succinct if you will.
So yeah, I think you've kind of went through. I'm happy to reduce my hours to help with the public nuisance and the Roaches Court. I'm more than willing to work with them and local authorities to make sure licensing objectives are met. And yeah, I just really want to do something different for the street, and I think my plans are laid out well to reduce any public nuisance or crime disorder.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not seeing anything of anyone else. Michelle, have you nothing to add? Okay, thank you. So what we'll do now is we'll have our determination, I think, because we've heard a lot of evidence and some strong views and a lot of mitigation has been offered. So we'll have to discuss all of that in some detail. So I think we're going to need probably half an hour at least. So I would suggest come back no earlier than 1:30. Makes sense because I know that people have taken a lot of time out of their days to come to this committee, but officers as well do need to have a lunch break, so we'll pause for an hour and come back just after 2 o'clock. Okay, thank you.